What's up, guys? So it's finally time for me to go over the builds I plan on playing on launch for the Druid. And I did say builds plural, and that's because I'm going to have an early game build, a mid game build, and a late game build. It's very similar to other ARPGs where I think having a progression of builds is really important, especially because in Diablo you can't get uniques early on and you need to farm them out. So you need something to farm that out. I have talked about my early game build and my late game build, so I'll go over those real quick. It's the mid game build that I think is kind of unique and interesting that I kind of just came up with. But so the late game build, 100% barring any nerfs or what have you. I'm playing Stormwolf. I don't want to go into too much because I made a video on this, but all I can say is I think this build is absolutely, utterly disgusting, OP, and I would be surprised if it lasts longer than a week before it's nerfed. That's all I'll say about that. And if you guys can't see it, don't believe it, you'll see it real soon. So I don't want to get too much into Stormwolf, but yeah, we're still kind of like tidying this up a little bit. Probably the Paragon tree is going to get edited a little if damage formula is different and all that, but yeah, some iteration of this is going to be my end game build. And basically you need Tempest Roar. You cannot play this build without Tempest Roar, just period. So we need to target farm, get this somehow, right? And that's where the mid game build is going to come in based on the knowledge of what we have of what it is you target farm and how you target farm. That's what the mid game build is going to try to solve. So early game build is the leveling build I had that I went over. Basically it's pretty straightforward. I'm personally going to play Landslide with Wind Shear on basic attack, and then we've got Companions and Bulwark, all this stuff. I'll link both the videos down below for Stormwolf and leveling guide. But the idea is essentially I want to transition the leveling build into the mid game build without changing too much. So what I came up with is this. It is a shapeshifter build. Now, that might be kind of confusing. Something kind of like occurred to me the other day when I realized technically human form is a form. And I realized you could actually go into human form to activate a lot of combos and abilities. And then I was thinking about, well, I like Landslide, but that's really only like single target. I want Pull for AoE. And then I thought, like, what if I just put both on my bar? So the idea is that for mid game specifically, remember, mid game, this isn't late game. As soon as you get into World Tier 3, your entire goal is to spend 50% of your time farming Hell Tides. Not only are they just good monster density and kill XP, you can essentially target farm helmets. There are certain caches where you can drop your currency, you can open up, and you're guaranteed a helmet. And that, I believe, is going to be the main source of where we're trying to get Tempest Roar. There are also certain monsters that can drop Tempest Roar. Helmets specifically, we don't know what they are yet, which would be Tempest Roar ideally. And then the Tree of Whispers, you could get a cache that has helmets in it. So in mid game, our entire goal is to farm as fast as possible. Now, I know that sounds dumb, right? But what I mean by that is Hell Tides are open world areas where they're not dungeons. So you're going to be going from like group to group of monsters and farming kind of like an MMO in theory is what I'm expecting. So what that means is you need AoE damage to quickly knock out monsters, and presumably probably not fighting bosses. There will be elites, right? So the idea with this build is it's kind of similar to Trample Slide, except we're not using the whole Trample and Trampled Earth. I think that's going to be the other mid-game build a lot of people are playing. I have a little reservations about that build still. Nothing wrong with it, just I'm not sure how some of the stuff is going to feel gameplays-wise. I'm pretty sure it's going to work. But for specifically what I want to do is I want to go into a pack of monsters and I want to delete them in one click, two at most. And I think Pulverize with Shockwave is best for that. With that in mind, that's kind of how I've designed the build. We want to go as fast as possible, kill AoE groups as efficiently as possible, and move between them, right? I'm not, you got to stick with me, okay? We're going to go down the skill tree. I'm going to kind of try to explain this. So Wind Shear gives us 20% movement speed, okay? Whenever we use Wind Shear, we go into human form. Pulverize. We went for the upgrade where Pulverize stuns when you overpower enemies. This is going to be our secondary source of Terra Mote generation. Our first is still Poison Creeper. This, aside from this generating Terra Motes, it just gives you so much strong poison synergy and Venom, Heightened Malice, right? It's so hard not to have a poison source in a Druid build. and then landslide with this Terramote setup. This is for elites that live past the first or second pulverize. This is for if we do fight bosses, like I'm sure we'll still do some content where there's bosses, right? Earthen Bulwark, this is for the Ghostwalker synergy with Unstoppable, and then Mending Stones. We're gonna have 9 seconds of Unstoppable, Barrier, Ghostwalker for 13 seconds. You guys know all that, right? A little bit of Fortified generation. Clarity, this is where it's kind of gonna start to pick up a little bit. Gain 6 spirit when transforming into human form. So if you use Wind Shear, right, and then use Pulverize, and then use a Wind Shear again, you're gonna gain 12 spirit from Wind Shear, but then you're gonna gain another 6 spirit from Clarity, okay? So we're still not going like neutral yet, but all these little things are gonna start to add up. So as we go down the tree, early on, we need to take 1 point out of this and put it here. I'll explain this later, but normal Earth stuff, increased damage to mobilized enemies, slowed enemies, which we're gonna get, you know, Poison Creeper, they immobilize, they slow with Neurotoxin. Increased damage if you're able to Fortify. We're going to get Fortify through Safeguard and Bulwark, yada, yada, yada. We're specifically taking Trample because remember, what are we doing? We're basically speed farming. That's the entire goal. We're killing as many monsters as fast as possible because we're trying to get Tempest Roar. That's our whole goal. Remember that. So I put 3 points in here. I'm not sure if I'll end up keeping these, but I think it's a pretty good idea where like, so you go into a pack of monsters, you pulverize. Ideally, there's actually like one monster still alive. You throw a Wind Shear at them, okay? When you throw a Wind Shear at them, you keep your movement speed stacked up, you transform to human, you get your spirit back, and then you trample to the next pack, okay? By trampling to the next pack, we gain 20 spirit. So we've effectively gained 38 spirit because we used Wind Shear to get 18, and then trample to get 20, and then as you're going towards the next pack, you throw a Wind Shear, right? So you're back to human, you've gained another 18, so we've already gained 56 spirit, and then with Earthen Bulwark and Ghostwalker, that's up to 25% move speed if you get a drop, otherwise just 10% from Codex, 20% from Wind Shear. We're running, and we can pass through mobs. We run into the middle of the next pack of mobs, we pulverize, right? And we can Wind Shear again, and we're gaining back that spirit. So that's kind of how we're going to be balancing our spirit early on, right? In Venom, I've talked about this is just super, super strong with Poison Creeper. Even on a single target, right? You're always going to have this. This tree is where it's really going to start to take off. So with Wind Shear, we have the ability to apply Vulnerable, and then eventually if we set up like the Exploit glyph, if we can get glyphs early, we'll have Vulnerable, right? Earth skills will deal increased damage to vulnerable enemies. So that's going to be good, right? Now, this is where we start to get our combinations. Resonance. We will get triple this bonus. 18% increased damage if we use a Storm skill before an Earth skill. We are essentially rotating Storm and Earth, okay? And we're going to do the same thing on single target as well. We're going to use Wind Shear, then Landslide, Wind Shear, then Landslide. And we're going to use Wind Shear, then Pulverize, Wind Shear, then Pulverize. And we're going to alternate. So we're adding 18% increased damage on. We have Circle of Life. For people that don't know, Pulverize becomes a Nature and Earth skill with Ursine Horror. I've tested this in game, 100% positive this works. So all these are working for Pulverize and Landslide. Now, we get to finally use these talents, which are pretty interesting. Quick Shift. When a shape-shifting skill transforms you into a different form, it deals increased damage. This does not state wolf, bear, or human. This is any form. So even your Wind Shear, if you go from bear form to human form, will deal increased damage. So you start in human form. If you're transforming into werebear with Pulverize, that's doing 15% increased damage. If you use a Wind Shear before that, you get the 18% increased damage. You get the 15% increased damage. And then behind it, when we shapeshift into a werewolf or werebear, gain 12% damage reduction for 5 seconds. So we're shifting in and out of werebear, we're gaining that damage reduction, right? In the tree, I think we're going to just go Ursine Strength. Earthen Might, I think can work. I would need to test this a little bit to see how it feels and how it plays, but easy enough, Ursine Strength. We're actually going to double dip a little bit with Ursine Strength because we're actually using Pulverize this time, right? Remember in the leveling build, we took Ursine Strength, but we weren't transforming into werebear. It maybe if you were trampling. So we're going to be getting the life, and that life will be working towards overpower damage. Now, this is where overpower starts to come in. Remember how we can get 1 overpower every 12 seconds with Pulverize, and we get stuns for Terramotes? That's where we pull in Obsidian Slam. Remember, what are we doing? We are speed farming trash mobs, okay? That means we are getting lots of constant kills is the goal. This is going to be constantly refreshing Obsidian Slam, making our Pulverize overpower more, which means we're going to be stunning more, which means we're going to be generating more Terramotes, right? The boons in general are a little bit of a toss-up. Masochistic will just kind of give us a little bit of sustain in between. It's not too big of a deal if we get this one or not. I mean, I'm still kind of working on that, but I think you might even drop Masochistic early on. I don't think you're going to take damage. I don't think we're going to need this, especially because we have Circle of Life, right? So I think it's going to end up being dropped and going to this. Pack Leader and Energize. Now, I don't think Energize is going to be too big of a deal, but there's a chance this could proc per mob hit. And if this procs per mob hit, you could just be filling up your spirit a ton, right? So that could be pretty decent. Pack Leader, the idea with this is it's a crit and then a lucky hit. Listen, it's not going to proc very often. You know what it's going to do? It's going to proc once in a while, and you're not going to have as much downtime waiting for Poison Creeper. That's pretty much it. Pretty good. I mean, it'll proc a little more often against single targets because Landslide's critting, but I think this is just going to like give you a little more Poison Creeper. Maybe it's one more Poison Creeper every 5 minutes. I don't know. Not a big deal. You're going to get it a little more often. Avian Wrath, obviously, for the crit damage, Landslide's always critting. Wariness, of course, is busted. So now we move into the aspects. Okay. We have aspect of the Umbral. Do you know what crowd controls? Are Pulverize, because we're gaining Obsidian Slam overpowers constantly, which turn into a stun with the Pulverize upgrade. Now you can Codex Aspral. You can code Aspect Umbral. Aspral. It's only one resource per crowd control. That's fine. It's okay, right? You're probably going to need to drop an Umbral that's at least higher than 1 for it to start to feel good. But imagine if you, even if you got a 2 and you hit 10 monsters with a Pulverize, you just gained 20 spirit back. That's more than half of the spirit cost. And we throw in a Wind Shear in between. We're going spirit neutral. We're not running out of spirit, right? So Umbral might be able to just get away with codexing this as well, right? We hit 10 mobs, we get 10 spirit back, plus, what is it, 12 plus 6 from Clarity. We're looking at 28. It's already looking pretty good, right? We're going to take Aftershock, of course, for Landslide. Remember, what did I say? This is not an endgame build. This is a mid-game farming build. We are not perfectly min-maxing one aspect or one area of a build. We can actually afford to spread ourselves, not quite thin, but spread ourselves a little bit and be strong in 2 different areas, not overpowered, but like good enough in 2 different areas, because in theory, we're just fighting trash mobs for the most part. Yeah, we might do some Nightmare dungeons, but like early Nightmare dungeons are not going to be that hard, and we're not going to run them that much. Our focus is going to be Hell Tides, open world farming, okay? So Natural Balance is another combination on top of this. This is whenever you use a Storm skill or an Earth skill, you get a bonus for the other one, right? So this ties in with like Resonance and the shape-shifting back and forth. I'm going to put Shockwave on a 2-hander. This is going to be a little tricky because I don't know how often you're going to be upgrading your weapon early on, like level 50 to 60. So this might hurt a little bit if you only get 1 Shockwave and then you like get a better weapon immediately. So we'll see about this one. But the idea is we want to just clear everything out with Pulverize, right? So we're going to need this on a 2-hander. Ghostwalker, I've talked about this before. If you guys don't know, if you're a druid, you should have Ghostwalker in your build. That's, I mean, you're kind of trolling if you don't put Ghostwalker, if I'm being honest. Aspect of Might, you can get this in the Codex. It's only 2 seconds, but we are weaving auto attacks between every single skill, right? So that's the idea there. There's not too many other better options. Ursine Horror, this is literally just to turn Pulverize into Earth. I wish I could drop this. You can drop it, but man, you just lose too much. The spikes, if people don't know, they do like no damage. It's like whatever, but this is just to get, this also is nature. Okay. I tested this. This is also nature before someone asked it in the comments. Mending Stone, this is the combination with Bulwark and Ghostwalker. That's really good. Now on the helmet, we're going to start with Ballistic, but here's the thing. Whenever we're farming, whenever we're farming Hell Tide, specifically for helmets, we're trying to get Tempest Roar. There's one other helmet that we might get instead. Now, this isn't really going to change anything. It's just that this build is set up to take advantage of if we accidentally get it ahead of time. Vasily's Prayer. There's a chance we just get this instead of Tempest Roar, right? So we put this on. You know what this does? This makes it so our Landslide and Earthen Bulwark become Werebear skills. Now, why is that important? Remember what I said about trample? We trample between packs. We throw a Wind Shear. We gain clarity bonus. We now just gained the ability to also do that with Earthen Bulwark and Landslide. So if we, I think I messed up before, but you're not going to get the clarity bonus with landslide until you put on Vasily's. I was jumping the gun there. But yeah, so that's the idea. So the thing we're doing with pulverize, we're going to be getting it with landslide on a single target. We'll go into werebear, then back, and then this gets us our bonus on landslide from these passives too down here. Quick shift and heightened senses. So again, we're not specifically going for this, but there's a decent chance we get this. Also, once we have this, we now generate fortify, so we can go back to dropping this, picking this back up, right? So this is like a kind of fallback because there's a chance we just get this before Tempest Roar, right? And it just slots in literally perfectly into the build. The other thing is, in Earth builds normally can't apply vulnerable. Wind Shear puts vulnerable up. We can go Emerald, or we can go Sapphire. The thing is though, ideally we're not hitting twice. The entire point of the build is to just hit once with Pulverize and everything's dead. So anything that's like damage to CC'd, damage to something that happens to have like two things happen, it could kind of work, right? Because we have Poison Creeper. I'm hoping the density is high enough where we actually can't Poison Creeper every single time, because 20 seconds is a long cooldown. So I don't know. A lot of this is going to be kind of like, you know, game day decisions we'll work with. Now, I think the build is like kind of interesting, but then if we have to keep going and we go into the Paragon board is actually kind of cracked. Okay. Now, Heightened Malice is just a busted board. So I'm not necessarily going to go in this order. I was just kind of seeing if this kind of fit. The thing with Paragon boards, especially, again, this is a mid-game build, so I'll talk about this here. I don't think we're going to have glyphs early, okay? I'm pretty sure, I don't even think it's going to be worth farming glyphs early. Like, you'll get them, but like, glyphs are like 0 radius early. You have to level them up to get more radius, and you're not going to be spending too much time in Nightmare Dungeons. And if you just do higher Nightmare Dungeons anyway, you're going to level them up faster. So I'm pretty sure we're just not going to have glyphs early. I don't think that's really going to be a thing. So you want to focus on legendary nodes, and all the legendary nodes are kind of insane for this build. So Heightened Malice, 3 or more poison enemies, Creeper, our Pulverize just destroys everything, right? So that's the whole goal. We want Pulverize to just one-shot everything. I'm just going to put Heightened Malice in this corner and just go for Heightened Malice first. The part of the problem with a lot of legendary nodes is they don't actually work on bosses. Like Heightened Malice doesn't work on a boss. Pulverize for Survival Instincts. Our goal is to use landslide on the boss, right? So this technically isn't going to do anything against a boss. But the whole point is we're trying not to fight bosses. We're trying to fight trash, right? So remember that. So Heightened Malice is very good for the trash mobs. We have Survival Instincts. So if we ever hit with one Pulverize and they don't die, we hit with another one. We're just doing more damage, right? We're like executing them. So that's really good. We have Ancestral Guidance. I don't know if there's a lockout timer on this. So like say I spend 74 spirit and then I like 10 minutes later, like if I'm just standing there, I spend 1 spirit, does it just proc? I would assume so. I don't see why not. So we're just going to be getting this as we like go through, right? And it'll also work for single target with landslide if we have to do that. Up here we have Inner Beast. Now, I don't think many people use Inner Beast or know how to use Inner Beast, right? It's tricky. This build is like what it's built for. The whole idea is we're shifting back and forth between bear and human, and all it says is after shapeshifting. It doesn't say into werebear or into werewolf. And you stack this up 3 times, your spirit costs are reduced by 30% already, right? Landslide is 10 or 30 spirit, so it's like almost 10 spirit reduced. Pulverize is 35, right? It's like 11, 12-ish, depending on how routing works. And remember how much spirit we were getting back already? So we're getting pretty close to getting like going even with just Wind Shear. On top of that, you can get resource cost reduction on, I think it's necklace and boots. You can get it on 2 things. And if you can get those plus this, you're looking at basically going spirit neutral with just Wind Shear plus clarity. Now, again, you're probably not going to get to this point because ideally we would farm out a Tempest Roar before it gets too late. But yeah, we have Earthen Devastation. This is actually like not a great node for this build because we're not, bosses can't be CC'd. So landslide isn't going to be getting value on this on a boss, right? And then ideally with Pulverize, we Pulverize and they're dead. But if we Pulverize and they're not dead, they're going to be stunned because they're going to be overpowered. It's only for 2 seconds. So if we can go quick enough, we could Wind Shear and then Pulverize again. Maybe you just double tap Pulverize because you have Umbral. I don't know. But so this actually probably won't get as much value as I'd like, but we can also, again, just Creeper, Pulverize, we'll get the value there. So that's kind of the idea. I think a lot of people are going to play Trample Slide mid game, but that also obviously requires you to get Trampled Earth to do that. And there's certainly a chance you do not have Trampled Earth when you're ready to transfer into mid game. And this build technically doesn't need Shockwave to work. Obviously, Shockwave feels really good, but I'm pretty sure Pulverize is what's going to feel really good for the mid game farm. Now, this is all just speculation based on the way I think is the most efficient to get Tempest Roar. My entire endgame goal is to play Storm Wolf, which means I need Tempest Roar. So whatever's going to get me to farm it out and get it the quickest is what I'm going to go for. That's where I'm at. I would love absolutely any input you guys have on this. Give me some ideas. I randomly just thought of this like the other day when I was like, I want to do like AoE and single target, but I also want like all my mobility on Druid. Can I just do that somehow? So I just kind of threw this together. I definitely did not optimize it. I just kind of threw things together that I liked. But poke holes in this, please. Like, tell me what you guys think will work, won't work. How do you guys think we could farm out Tempest Roar quicker? Anything like that. We got like, what, 2-3 days left before the game comes out. So this is where I'm at. I think it's actually a really cool build in general too. I'd love to play this like longer into the game. I think like with the resource cost reduction, Inner Beast, I actually like alternating like Spender Builder, Spender Builder, Spender Builder. I know some people might not like that, but I think it's a cool combo because you get absolutely so many bonuses, right? Natural balance plus all this stuff down here, I think is like so cool. A lot of people were asking like how to make a shapeshifting build, and I think too many people were trying to focus on like wolf and werebear and are completely excluding human as a form. And I thought that was like kind of like cool when I was like, oh wait, we can just do like human wolf or human bear. But the other thing I will mention, shred dashes could be like crazy good mobility. I couldn't really work this into a build that I liked personally. I think you could totally just put 3 points in here and put it on your bar and pretend it's your movement skill. I think that's fine. I'm sure that'll be good. I couldn't quite get it to work in like these kind of builds that I liked. But yeah, this is where I'm going to be at. This is my early game, mid game, late game builds. I'm pretty set on this. I don't think anything's really going to change unless we hear differently on how things are working. So if you guys have any questions, I'm sure you do, please ask them down in the comment section below. Help me make a better build if possible. And yeah, until next time, I'll see you guys later.